Because it was, yeah, better weather. It's cold.
Oh. I like it. That's like I have to go back, dig up my old jackets. now.
I did find some stuff over the weekend.
Right.
Yep. I was outside working Christmas dinner
Oh.
Saturday, windy. Just a few.
Well, hopefully we'll get a little dry weather. You know, we're gonna get, hey, we should have to when we get to.
Oh, my goodness.
There's no snow here.
Yeah, right. There's some,
Yeah, we really didn't get. We were waiting.
We don't want you. That's my chair.
Grass is
Sit at the big.
The streets are still.
Yeah. Well, that's another issue.
Yeah. Sort of subject.
Yes, yeah.
Tony?
What's that?
Morning.
Exhale.
Yeah, it wasn't.
Everybody's downstairs waiting.
Yes, they are. I'm supposed to go do a tap dance.
Soft shoe.
Yeah, I just saw cats last night, so.
Oh, good show.
good morning, everyone. Thank you for coming. Why don't we rise to the pledge of allegiance? I pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you for coming here on Monday, Thanksgiving week. And I will note that all board members are present. And I will move to approve the minutes from the November 3rd, 2022 board meeting. If there's a second.
Second.
Thank you. Any question or comment? Hearing none, all in favor?
Hi.
Passes unanimously. And on to the CCBOE social media policy. This is a document that was emailed to us last week. I know all the members have had a chance to review it. We've had a few friendly edits to it. Mr. James, good morning.
Good morning, Peter James, Election and Compliance Administrator. Social media policy, we've kind of kicked around doing one here for a while, but the main impetus to actually go ahead and create the social media policy came out of the January 2022 OAEO conference. At the conference, Hamilton County presented on how they use social media and emphasized the importance of creating a social media policy to guide how an agency uses these tools of communication. And a part of this panel, the SOS was also representative there. So it was very useful. So we got a hold of Hamilton County's policy along with a social media policy that Portage County has. And then we also found a couple others, King County, Washington, ironically, which is also a ClearVow customer, and Fairfax County, Virginia. The policy was heavily reviewed within the agency, in particular, Lori Acosta from Human Resources, and of course, Mark Musson. In addition to the policy itself, we also established some internal processes and procedures to guide how we will use social media and fulfill the obligations we have set forth in this policy. We had a discussion with Mark over the subject of comments from the public on our social media posts and how we would handle those and whether we were permitted under the law to hide or remove the comments. Through that discussion, we felt it was most prudent to disable comments in all our social media accounts. The public can still send us direct messages through the different platforms, in particular Facebook and Twitter, and of course, email and phone are always available for the public to use. Internally, we have a document that we catalog all the content of our social media posts, documents called Smart Sheets. And then moving forward, we will also use this same document to catalog any direct messages we receive as well. And with that, I'll just open up for any questions.
This is something that's required for us, Mr. James, to adopt, right? Secretary of State's office would like to see a policy.
I mean, I don't think necessarily it's a requirement. I think it's highly suggested.
Just right. It's not a directive.
Correct. Yes.
I thought it was very thoughtful and well read, written out, and it is something that provides some guidance and direction for our staff here, and provides a floor for us at least to handle matters that should come up. So, thank you for preparing that and all those that were involved in that.
Just a quick comment. I mean, I think it's a best practice to have something. My only concern is to make sure that and I think edits were made that reflect this comment, but to make sure we're adopting a policy that we really can enforce and that we can really follow. So, but it looks to be in good shape and better to have something than not have it. I think a lot of people struggle with, do we need one or should we have it? So it's good work all the way around. So thank you.
Will we share this with the SOS's office once it's adopted?
Yeah,
Let them
absolutely.
know. Okay, great. Well, we'll move to adopt the CCBOE social media policy set forth in our agenda.
Second.
Thank you. Any further question or comment? Hearing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion passes unanimously. Ms. Edwards, good morning.
You should have before you the provisional validation summary report. A total of 9,201 provisional ballots were issued during the November 8, 2022 general election, of which 8,407 were confirmed to be valid provisional ballots, while 794 were rejected for various deficiencies. Staff verified the provisional in accordance with Chapter 8 provisional voting of the Secretary of State's election official manual and directives 2019-04, 2020-08, and 2020-09. We found 8,407 officials that met the requirements for opening. This number also includes 148 wrong precinct, correct location that are being remade by the ballot department. There were additional 56 ballots made valid due to the A-pre exception. The A-pre exception allows any Cuyahoga County voter that was canceled as a result of the 2011, 2013, 2015 supplemental process to be reactivated as long as they did not re-register in another county after their 2011, 2013, 2015, 2019 cancellations. Staff verified 1,117 incoming out-of-county provisionals and an additional 805 provisionals where the voters were previously registered in Cuyahoga County and did not vote here for the election. Before we get to staff's recommendation, I'd like to briefly review why the voters had to vote provisionally. This information can be found on the pie chart that is before you, noting that the largest category dealt with address changes, followed by those that have requested absentee ballot that voted them and returned them. Also before you, you have a listing of the reasons for the rejections broken down. There were 435 where the voters were not registered anywhere in the state of Ohio, an additional 108 that voted in the wrong precinct and the wrong location. There were also 70 empty envelopes, 31 no signatures, 29 voted absentee, 24 had missing addresses, 24 had missing identifications, 22 no date of birth, 17 non-matching identification, 9 non-matching signatures, bad addresses, 8 voted in the wrong county, 7 voted absentee that was challenged, 6, and no printed name that are 4. And it should be noted that in regards to the rejections, that the director and the deputy director did focus in on those with non-matching signatures. Specifically, they also reviewed other categories of rejections. So,
Thank you. Any questions from Ms. Edwards? I just note that's about a rejection rate of 8.6%, which is pretty good. It's low. I will move, we can have more, I will move to authorize the opening of provisional ballots as explained just by Ms. Edwards. for purposes of getting to the certification of selection next Tuesday, if there's a second.
Second, and it just sounded, it just a quick question. I mean, it sounded, no, not really a question. It sounded like you said 1,407 as opposed to 8,000. Just to me, maybe because there was some echo, just so the record is clear, 8,407 valid. Thank you, Benny, for the report.
Any other questions for Ms. Edwards?
Good report.
Okay, great. Hearing none, all those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Motion passes. I see we have a room full of people down on the first floor ready to start counting those, correct?
Yeah, they will, what they'll do is they'll go down there and they'll open all those up. And our goal is by 10 or 10:30 tomorrow to deliver all of them to the ballot department. So they can get those filtered in for next Tuesday certification.
Just if you know, do you have any absentee ballots came in those 10 days?
Yes. Well, as far as I know, ballot eligible for opening is 1,189.
1,189?
Yeah, so we'll have 1,189 ballots, vote by mail ballots that will be worked into the system and part of next week's tabulation, as well as these 8,407 provisionals will come in there. So we definitely will see changes in the election results, which we always do from the unofficial vote totals. We will see changes in vote totals from the unofficial to the official, because these ballots here that are valid to be included will be included, as well as we scan, there will be some additional remakes that will have to happen because ballots will fall out through that process, and we'll go ahead and we'll remake those. But yeah, there's I don't know if I want me to come on it now.
Just wanted to know, thank you.
Yep.
All right.
There you go.
On to fiscal, Ms. Walker, we have a voucher item here for Berman's Store. It's pretty self-explanatory. This is, Ms. Walker, you want to just tee it up for us?
Yes, good morning. I'm Kate Walker, Fiscal Manager here at Board of Elections. This is a document showing a contract with Berman for the storage and transport of our ballot for this election cycle.
I will move to approve the voucher set forth for $45,210. If there's a second.
Second.
And Berman's worked up to snuff again, as they have in the past.
They did, and it was nice that they did not have any COVID-related issues this time, and they were on track and delivered everything as far as what Victor expected them to do it, which was good, and they did it correctly.
Terrific. All right. Hearing no other questions, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Motion passes. On to new business.
Just a couple of quick things for new business. One, so the vote by mail ballots and these provisional ballots, they will be tabulated over the course of the coming week and included in our certification numbers for next week. As of when you look right now, currently with the unofficial results, we have one contest that falls within the automatic recount window, and that is a common pleas judge, which is between Brian Mooney and Joan Sinnenberg. And there are enough ballots in play that anything can happen. So if we could do all this and we could end up at an automatic recount still, or it could come out without out of that range for an automatic recount. It's a little over 700 ballot difference now, and we need to get to, I think, 1,523. Now knowing how many additional ballots we have, we need to get to that number for it not to be an automatic range. So it's possible, we'll wait and see. It would be a countywide recount if it is. We haven't had a countywide recount in quite a while. Usually they're just smaller partial counties, so it's actually a pretty big undertaking. So we'll wait and see.
When you say big undertaking, how long do you think that could take?
Could take about 3 weeks.
Prior though to that office being seated. So yeah, I think the term is January 2nd, the first.
Right, yeah, it would definitely be completed before then. And it takes so long because here we have to scan all the ballots that were cast. And lucky for us, we have some 3-page ballots out there, which just makes that number go up. So it's a lot of sheets.
Do we need to hire additional staff to get it done in time, or?
That's the thing is that really doesn't necessarily help. We'll get through the handcount portion, and then it's the scanners.
Yeah.
So we have 2 scanners that are down. The SMS was out. We're trying to get those up to snuff. Supposedly, one of them may have a supply chain issue on a motherboard or something to come in, so we'll wait and see. So those machines, you can only go as fast as those machines can take.
Those are the 850.
The 850.
And how many do we have?
We have 7.
7,
Right now, 5 are working.
and 2 offline.
Yeah, and hopefully we'll have 7, if need be, when this time comes. And
So does that mean it's time for new equipment?
that's right.
When are we pulling the trigger on that again? When are we gonna?
So we are definitely having lots of discussions with our legal counsel on that, and hopefully, or we need to exchange documents with Clear Ballot really within the coming weeks, and have something finalized right around the Christmas time in order to get on county council's agenda. So we can then in January, we will most likely have to have 2 meetings in which we introduce, and then we'll get approval. And then as long as we follow those timelines, we will be able to implement for May. If we get outside of that range, then we have to have some very serious discussions on, do we do one more with what we currently have, or can we pull it off? Not right now. So we'll see. And part of it too depends on, we anticipate only a partial county election in May. However, the latest chatter is that there may be pushes to have a statewide issue, which then all of a sudden turns it into a countywide election, which is a whole different ballgame.
You set forth those dates in an email to us last week, so thank you. I mean, you have a plan going forward.
Yes.
And keep us updated.
So yeah, so we actually, we had a nice long discussion with the attorneys on Friday. We have another one scheduled for tomorrow. So everything is moving forward. I think we're getting close. Another thing I wanted to, poll worker paychecks. We had hoped that for them to go out on Friday. The county had technical difficulties. They did print the checks over the weekend and got them sealed. So staff went this morning, picked up the poll worker paychecks. Those will go in the mail today. So wasn't anything. We did everything we could, and we were waiting on the county to get it done. So I think staff, this was the fastest I think we've ever processed countywide.
It's still fast.
Yeah, so it's a little bit, I mean, I appreciate everything everybody does. When we have 100% control of everything, we get stuff done. That's when you have to rely on others, which we always do. That gets a little frustrating. And then just one last thing, and I did kind of send an email on this a little bit previously. Between now and the end of the year, probably more so at the December board meeting, we'll be coming forward with some proposed precinct changes that are based off of ward boundary changes that some communities did. So based on the census that happened, some charters call for, or even in statute for those communities to look at their population, see if there's shifts in population, and then go ahead and adjust ward boundary lines where needed. And so councils have been doing that. We haven't been able to do anything as far as implementation up to this point in 2022 because we're always in an election cycle. And so you can't change precinct boundaries so far in advance of closing registration and those types of things. So now we have this window in which we need to get a lot of this done. And so ward boundaries, we have no say in that, but then we have to make the precincts fit within these ward boundaries. Some of these look to be very minimal changes, some of them a little bit more involved. And what we're looking to, so we kind of are approaching this based on filing deadline for 2023, and that's our priority. So for example, there is either a February or March filing deadline for Parma, Fairview Park, Oakwood, and Berea. So those will be the ones that we will put priority first and try to make sure that we have those for December approval, so staff can do their part. And then the next would be June filing deadline, which impacts Bay Village, Garfield Heights, and Brook Park. So if we can, we'd like to get those also done in December. And then there's another round for August, Parma Heights, Euclid, and Bedford. So again, our priority is for that first elected filing deadline in February, which ultimately could lead to a May primary for those communities. So John Eddy has been diligently working on this. Initially, there may be 1 or 2 cities that may be reduced by one precinct based on how the population shifts have worked. But a lot of it looks like it'll be the same as far as the number of precincts. So
That timeline includes, getting it done, includes, all the work John Eddie's doing, the re-precincting where it's needed, and then notifying the voters of any changes.
right. So what we would do is even before we come before this board, we're going to share these drafts with the city councils who drew the ward boundaries. Ultimately, we have final say, but as we always like to try to work with everybody, we will share them and let them know, hey, this is what we're looking at based on what you provided to us. So we'll have that done before we come here.
So if they have any input of concerns, we can address those.
Exactly. We'll try to get that all hammered out. So as much as possible, you are looking at what we believe to be our final version. And then if you have any changes, we can go ahead and do that.
And then the voters.
And then ultimately, the voters, those voters that are impacted, so those that either have a precinct change, well, if they have a ward change, they will have a precinct change. So they would get notified. But then if there's precinct changes within the existing ward, they too, those individuals will be notified, hey, here's your new assignment and here's where you're gonna have to go to vote on election day.
Any other questions, Mr. Bly? All right, no new business. We do have some public comment here, and Reverend Pinkney, you wanted to speak to the board? We, of course, have two other public comments that have been noted, and you have 5 minutes. We appreciate you coming down and sharing your thoughts with the board. Please
Good
start.
morning, everyone,
Good morning.
and I'm glad to see a female of color in this council, and I'm glad you're back in your seat. When Moses was leading the people, because he was elected and chosen by God as well as called out by the people, he had to give instructions, and he got those 10 commandments. And where there is no law, there is no order. And I'm glad that all of you have come together. I'm glad for that social media process that you have in place. I am concerned, however, of the racism in social media, as well as mainstream media, because recently, I know some say that we don't want to be political, but it is very political. And I say that because just recently, social media just put Donald Trump back on social media after being denied, knowing that he's running for office again. And it denies we people who are also candidates in elections fair and equal opportunities. So I am the founder and visionary of NBN Network, which is No Bad News Network. What I do is I also go around and see what's good and taking place, which is why I film the board meetings here, so that people can see what's good taking place in Cuyahoga County Board of Elections. So I challenge the process that if you're going to give a rule for social media, that it be fair and equal to we people of color and other candidates. I thank you for the account for the provisional ballots, and I come to ask you today, what can we as community leaders do to make that better for you? How can we help so that we can lower those numbers? And I wanted to know this morning, has the voting, was it an increase in this election? Because if it's not, then we community leaders need to get together with you to make that happen. And I ask you to please reach out to us. We don't expect that you just come here just because you have nothing to do, but reach out to us. My other concern is, as I'm going to tailgate a little bit on what I was saying a second ago. I ran for president of the United States of America 4 times. And I never got fair and equal opportunities for my election, not only through social media, not only through mainstream media, not only through press, but in the electoral process. And I have found my name even on the bottom of the list. And I'm concerned about that because a prophet is without honor, safe in her own prophetess for me, in her own country, in her own hometown. And I'm finding that I'm getting discriminated against. And I would ask that an investigation be done in reference to my processes for when I have been running for office. And when I run for office, chairperson, I've had people sick officers on me, beat me up, and on the day of early voting this year, I got a phone call to try to lock me up in the psychiatric hospital to come to to meet somebody at the 4th district to lock me up so I could not vote in this election. And I'm having a problem with that. I have a serious, and I don't have problems because problems are unsolvable. Circumstances are changeable. But I'm asking that someone look into this, please. And I love this group that you all have now. You are effective, you are considerate, you are straightforward, and you do things appropriately. And I'm asking that you will look into, and I ask that you will look into the rights and the opportunities for the disabled people. They're still feeling left out. They're still feeling voided. They're still feeling like they are missing the mark. And the disabled people, such as the deaf and the blind, are not given fair and equal opportunities and the understanding of what the process is still, and they do not have adequate resources and people to support them. I thank you all for being here. I thank you all for what you do. And I have established a new party called the Multi-Partisan Party. I started over 10 years ago, which is inclusive of all parties. So I do the Jesus thing. Jesus had disciples, and they came from different cultures, different walks of life, because I want the good that all of us do. I pray that today is a successful day and a prosperous day for all of us. I pray it's a safe day, and I'm looking forward to the day that we have no violence in our voting process. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Reverend, for your time. Have a wonderful week and Thanksgiving. Mr. Charles Drake, sir, you have some comments about the November 8th election.
Good morning, board members. How are you today?
Good. If you could just state your name and address, Mr. Drake.
Charles Drake. My address is 7560 Elaine Drive, Seven Hills, Ohio.
Thank you.
A couple of issues. For almost over a decade, I've been a rover with this county. And this election, I observed a couple of things that I wanted to bring to the board's attention. One was, and I have pictures if the board is interested, the long lines that some seniors had to wait in to vote. In particular, I worked on the east side in Lyndhurst, at the Lyndhurst Community Center at 4 o'clock in the afternoon. The voters were shoulder to shoulder down the street, and then about 30 people on the cross street. That's a long line for the vote. That's a long time for seniors to stand in line to have to vote. Number one. Now, my other one has to do with your compensation for rovers. I am not happy that I had to give a 10% interest-free loan to OPERS to work for this board. Number two, the rate of $15 an hour is not reasonable compensation to compensate the rovers who this election worked from 8 a.m. in the morning to 8:30 at night, Monday night, and then worked from 4:30 Tuesday morning to 1:30 Wednesday morning. For $15 an hour, that's almost slave labor. I do it because I am a minority in this county. I'm a Republican, so I do it to keep the other party from cheating. But number two, if you want competent workers, you have to pay them more. My last issue is you also do not compensate rovers for use of their cars. I drove 77.2 miles at the IRS rate of 64 cents a mile. That's a little over $50. Thank you for listening.
Thank you, Mr. Drake, for your service and your comments this morning. I appreciate it. Mr. David Delgado. Hi, Mr. Delgado, if you could state your name and your address, sir. Good morning.
Good morning, David Delgado, 1031 Nicholson, Lakewood, Ohio. And I was going to relent my position today because I did send an email to people, and I thought I'll leave it alone, but it has to do with the rover over here. I thought to myself, okay, I'll bring it up. It had to do with COVID protocol. At my location, I found when I got there, I was informed that there were no sneeze guards. And sneeze guards that protect the EPBs, check-in officials, from the public at large. There are 3-foot barriers, they have windows. So there were none. So I mentioned it to the rover, and the rover said, well, there are none to be had. And I said, "No, that's not the question. Did we run out?" He said, "Well, there are none to be had." I said, "That's not the question. The question is, did we run out?" So he called the VOE and he talked to them and then I talked to them. He let me talk to them and they said, "There are none to be had." And I repeated the question 3 times. I said, "That's not what I'm asking. Did we run out or should we not just get them at this location?" And what he said was, he said, "Well, those locations with EPBs of 2 or less, we decided not to hand out these sneeze guards." And I said, "Well, let me get this straight. You're going to expose my EPB check-in officials to 200 to 300 individuals, possibly to COVID. You know, worst case scenario is they come down sick, but even worse than that, they contract a serious case of COVID and they pass away simply because you decided to do a beta test." And this is what I was told, it was a beta test, that you're not providing these officials with these EPB check-ins. And by virtue of just random, they were assigned, random luck, they were assigned to this location. But others who are assigned to locations of 3 EPBs or more, they're going to be protected. So you're assigning a value to their lives that mean nothing. Then we went back and forth a few times, and they said, "Well, we're going to give you face shields." I said, "Well, that's okay, and it's fine, but I like these sneeze guards." I received a call on my way home from an AD, and I spoke with I guess the deputy director, and I talked to him about it, and I maintain certainly what I feel was a sense of professionalism throughout. But my point was, you're exposing these individuals to COVID when rates are up in Trumbull County, rates are up in Erie County. You're exposing these individuals because by random luck, they were assigned to work at a location with 2 EPBs or less. But if they've been assigned to locations of 3 EPBs or more, they'd be protected by these sneeze guards that isolate them from the public. Well, after some discussion, the individual informed me, says, "Well, you know," I said, "How much do these cost? $2, $3 a piece?" And he said, "No, they cost $50 a piece." And I said, "All right, so you're assigning $100 value to the lives of these individuals and the health of these individuals." At the end of the day, the gentleman informed me, certainly he was apologetic, understanding. He said, "We'll get you something. We'll work on it. We'll get you something by Tuesday." Well, sure enough, by Tuesday, we had these sneeze guards. My point is this. I would encourage the board to take into consideration the health of all individuals. And if a beta, in fact, was being conducted, let's all be transparent and open about what the parameters of the beta is. What are the parameters of this beta test? What are we measuring? Are we measuring the health of the individuals? If they come down sick, well, then perhaps we'll re-implement sneeze guards. If they pass away, what are we going to do? So we don't know, we didn't know, we being officials and location managers that work these locations, we're unaware of this. So I think it should be a collaborative process to where certainly the board is charged with making decisions. Those decisions that are made, I would ask that they be communicated if they potentially adversely affect or could affect the health of workers. Let us in on it, let everybody in on it so that they can make an informed decision as to whether or not to participate. I personally would have participated regardless, but others may not. So I respectfully ask for that consideration. Thanks for your time and listening.
Thank you, Mr. Gargo, for your time. I do note that you did send an email at 8:50. I have not had a chance to read it, but I think you did a wonderful job summarizing.
My apologies for that.
No, that's okay. Thank you. No other public comment, Skip? Okay, we don't have any, and we are still in recess. Any other new business? Board members? Okay, here I will move to remain in recess, and we will return here on the 29th of November to certify. Does someone make a motion on it, and why? I don't see any need to go in.
Okay, well, I would like to go in for the purpose of having a consultation with counsel on attorney-client privilege matters related to potential litigation and judicial appointments, actually judicial appointments.
Imminent litigation.
Imminent litigation, thank you.
Okay, is there a second?
I'll second.
Okay, there's a second, and Ms. Sticken,
Yes.
Mr. McCafferty?
Yes.
Ms.
Yes,
Chappelle, Hastings is yes too. All right, we'll go into executive session, and then we'll be coming out, and there'll be a motion to order recess.
Jeff, do you want me to wait around? Or?
I don't think there's a need to, Steve. Thank you.
Thanks, Dave.
You too.
Thanks.
Thanks.
Thanksgiving.